Okay, we're ready to go. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Trinadapi Sunichena Taradiva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Hare Nama Hare Nama Hare Nama Eva Kibalam Kalo Nastyeva 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 Gatir Anyata. Today we are remembering and glorifying Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. His pranam prayers are in the Mangala Charana. Namo Bhaktivinodaya Sachit Ananda Namane Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate. We offer our obeisances unto Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura, who was also known as Sachidananda. He is considered the personified energy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he is a revered follower of Srila Rupa Goswami. So I first learned about Bhaktivinoda Thakura from the very first Hare Krishna songbook. And there is a nice glimpse into the life of Thakur Bhaktivinoda within that. Thakur Bhaktivinoda led a life of incessant labor and activity for Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he effected such immense good in the world that his work is only to be compared with the unbounded works of Sri Chaitanya himself and the Goswamis. It was the spiritual attempts and divine writings of this individual that turned the scale and led the intelligent and educated community to believe in the noble precepts and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. If we look back 1 century, we cannot but be astonished to find how degraded was the condition of the Vaishnava faith, which had its pure origin in the deep and majestic spiritual philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Even vastly learned pundits could not fathom the super excellent precepts of Lord Chaitanya's philosophy, and yet, due to incredulity born of the ignorance of uncultured men, the Vaishnava faith had become degraded and was considered simply a beggar's excuse for living at the expense of society. It was by sheer love for the Godhead that Thakur Bhaktivinoda expounded the deep philosophy which had remained concealed in the pages of the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas, and of course, Srimad Bhagavatam. By his action toward divine service, and also by his words set in simple language to be easily understood by the readers in general, Bhaktivinoda has given this philosophy to the world. In his writings and his divine, unparalleled character that have helped to produce a class of educated and enlightened men who are now proud of their Vaishnava faith and of their acquisition of the spiritual knowledge of the pure and sublime philosophy of Sri Krishna, on which the stern teachings of Sri Chaitanya are based. Although born in opulent circumstances on September 2nd, 1838, Thakur Bhaktivinoda was given the name Kedaranath Datta, and he had to meet many difficulties in his early life. His childhood he was spent at his maternal grandfather's house at Birnagara, Ulagram, from where he came to Calcutta at the age of 13 after the death of his father. And after he completed his education, he was requested to present at the time of his paternal grandfather's death. His grandfather, Raj Vallabha Datta, had been a famous personality of Calcutta and had retired to a lonely place in Orissa to spend his last days as an ascetic. He could predict the future, and he knew when he would die, since he could commune with supernatural beings. Thakur Bhaktivinoda was present at the eventful time when that great soul passed away, and after receiving his grandfather's instructions, Bhaktivinoda visited all of the major temples and ashrams in the state of Orissa. Bhaktivinoda Thakur then entered the educational service and introduced English education into the state of Orissa for the first time. He wrote a small book about all the ashrams of the state and mentioned an ashram which was on his ancestors' property. As he quotes, "I have a small village, Choti Mangalapur, in the country of Orissa, of which I am the proprietor. In that village is a religious house which was granted by my predecessors to the holy men as a holding of rent-free land. The head of the institution entirely gave up entertaining such men as chanced to seek shelter on a rainy night. This came to my notice, and I administered a severe threat that his lands would be cruelly resumed if in the future complaints of inhospitality were brought to my knowledge." Bhaktivinoda Thakur later took to the government service and was transferred to Bengal. In one town, he gave an historic speech on Srimad Bhagavatam, which attracted the attention of thousands. He made the world know what hidden treasures pervade every page of the Bhagavatam, which should be read by all persons having a philosophical turn of mind. Bhaktivinoda was transferred some years later to a town called Champaran. In this town, there was a Brahmadaitya living in a great banyan tree, and he was being worshipped by many degraded people. A Brahmadaitya is a type of ghost. One day, the father of a famous girl scholar came to Bhaktivinoda for alms, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur at once employed him in reading the Bhagavatam under the shade of the banyan tree, which was the abode of that ghost. And after 1 month, the Bhagavatam was completed, and then and there the tree crashed to the ground, and the ghost was gone for good. Everyone was thankful for this act, except for the few dishonest persons who were worshipping the ghost. Bhaktivinoda's next move was to Puri. The government commissioner was much pleased to get him in his division, and so he asked him to watch the affairs of the Jagannath temple on behalf of the government. And it was through Bhaktivinoda's exertions that many malpractices were checked, and the time for the offering of food before the deity was regulated to its extreme punctuality. Thakur Bhaktivinoda was especially entrusted to quell the rise against the government of one Bhishikeshana, who declared himself to be an incarnation of Mahavishnu. During the course of his investigation, Thakur Bhaktivinoda found him to be a hoax and a culprit, and charged him with transgressing government injunctions. And after his trial, the fellow was sentenced to imprisonment for 1.5 years, but he died shortly after in jail. This man was really possessed of unnatural powers, but as they were the outcome of non-spiritual practices, he had to submit to Bhaktivinoda Thakur when the latter wanted him to do so. this Bhaktivinoda was held in dread by the common people, and everyone warned Bhaktivinoda not to admonish him, even for the sake of justice, in view of serious consequences that the so-called yogi would inflict. But although Bhaktivinoda was not a man of ostentation and did not allow people to know his true qualities and spiritual strength, Bhaktivinoda easily cut down the demoniac power of the impostor. And with the fall of Bhaktivinoda, there arose an impostor Balaram at yet another village. And there were also other so-called incarnations of God, but their plans were similarly frustrated. During his stay at Jagannath Puri, Thakura Bhaktivinoda devoted much of his time to the discussion of spiritual works and prepared notes on the Vedanta Sutras, which were published with the commentaries of Baladev Vidyabhushana. He also composed the Kalyana Kalpataru, from which the song Vibhavari Shesha appears in this songbook. This may very truly be termed an immortal work, and it stands on the same level as the divine writings of Narottam Das Thakur. In 1877, Bhaktivinoda left Puri on government service, and in 1881, he started a well-known spiritual journal called the Sajjanatoshini, or For the Satisfaction of Pure Devotees. Bhaktivinoda also published a book, Sri Krishna Sanghita, which revealed to the world the underlying philosophy explaining the spiritual existence of Krishna. Indeed, this book opened the eyes of educated people to teach them their true relationship with God. It also attracted the admiration of many German scholars, for although the public regarded Krishna as a poetic creation of erotic nature, Srila Bhaktivinoda revealed Krishna as the Para Brahman, the supreme transcendental person, the absolute truth, and he did this on the basis of Vedic evidence. At the close of his stay at the village of Narail, he visited Vrindavan. There, Bhaktivinoda had to encounter a band of dacoits known as Kanjars. These powerful bandits spread all over the road surrounding the holy place, and they used to attack innocent pilgrims. Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought this news to the government, and after many months of struggle, extirpated the bandits from Vrindavan forever. From this time on, Thakur Bhaktivinoda preached extensively in large gatherings, explaining all of the precepts of the Sankirtan of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. While staying at Barasat, Thakur Bhaktivinoda met the famous Bengali writer Bankim Chandra. This novelist and playwright had just finished writing a book on Sri Krishna, and knowing Bhaktivinoda to be an authority on topics of Krishna, gave the manuscript to him to view. It was full of mundane Western stylized speculations and ideas. But after 4 days of discussion, Bhaktivinoda had the whole text revised by Bankim Chandra in order to accommodate the pure, supra-mundane precepts of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And during his last year at Barasat, Bhaktivinoda was requested by a noted high court judge to publish an authoritative edition of Srimad Bhagavad Gita with the commentaries of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, as well as Bhaktivinoda's own translation. The preface, written by Bhakti Machandra, expressed his gratitude to the Thakur for his endeavor, and when it was published, the copies were soon exhausted. Then, Thakur Bhaktivinoda published a unique work entitled Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita, or the Nectarian Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which dealt with Lord Chaitanya's theistic philosophy and the philosophies of the Western speculators. This book defeats every other philosophy point for point and establishes the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya as supreme. In 1885, Bhaktivinoda started a society named Sri Vishwa Vaishnava Raj Sabha for the propagation of pure Hari Bhakti, and many eminent citizens of Calcutta joined this society, and several committees were organized with assigned duties. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was so anxious to see the land of Lord Chaitanya that he applied many times for a transfer to any town nearby. Upon not receiving the desired transfer, Bhaktivinoda formally submitted a resignation from public service, but it was refused. Then, to his great rejoicing, Bhaktivinoda did obtain a transfer to Krishnanagar, 25 miles from Navadvip, Mayapur. Once stationed at a place near Navadvip, Bhaktivinoda did not let a single free moment pass without visiting the land of Navadvip. He at once made inquiries about the exact whereabouts of the different places of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, and he soon discovered that the then city of Navadvip was a town of only 100 years standing. So Bhaktivinoda was curious to locate the actual birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. He was convinced that the town of Navadvip was not the authentic location, and so he at once commenced a vigorous inquiry to find the truth of the matter. But he could not easily escape from the people who tried to make him believe that the birthplace of Chaitanya was at the town of Navadvip. But then, after careful inquiry, Bhaktivinoda was told that the site was lost under the shifting course of the Ganges. Not satisfied with this explanation, Bhaktivinoda himself set out to discover the Yoga Peeth, or birthplace, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After great difficulties, he came to know of a place which was being adored by many realized souls as the true birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but at that time was in the possession of the Mohammedans. Local inquiry and corroborative evidence from ancient maps of the latter part of the 18th century, which showed the name Sri Mayapur, at last helped Bhaktivinoda to discover the real site of the birthplace. And this discovery led to the publishing of a valuable work called Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. And chapter 5 of this book appeared in ISKCON's Bengali Back to Godhead magazine. The year 1895 was the most eventful year in the history of the Vaishnava world, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the prime mover of the events, for it was in this year that he officially memorialized the birth site of Sri Chaitanya and brought its true identity and importance before the public eye. Thousands of visitors were present at the function held at the very spot. Just after retiring from government service, Thakur Bhaktivinoda himself, in a spirit of perfect humility, and with a view to giving a firm standing to the discovery, went from door to door to raise funds for a temple. In the newspaper Amrita Bazar Patrika, on December 6, 1894, the following article appeared. Quote, Babu Kedarnath Dutt, the distinguished deputy magistrate, who has just retired from the service, is one of the most active members. Indeed, Babu Kedarnath Dutt has been deputed by his committee to raise subscriptions in Calcutta and elsewhere, and he is determined to go from house to house if necessary and beg 1 rupee from each Hindu gentleman for the noble purpose. If Babu Kedarnath Dutt sticks to his resolution of going around with bag in hand, we hope that no Hindu gentleman whose house may be honored by the presence of such a devout bhakta, as Babu Kedarnath, that person will send him away without contributing his mite, however humble it may be, to the Gora Vishnupriya Temple Fund. So truly, Thakur Bhaktivinoda honored the houses of many persons just for the fulfillment of the noble object he had undertaken. He went to persons to whom he would not have gone for any other purpose but for the mission of Lord Chaitanya, and his efforts were not fruitless, since the sum collected contributed to the construction of a building on the holy site of Lord Chaitanya's appearance. The work of preaching the holy name of God was also in full swing, and it spread fast into the distant corners of the globe. The Gauranga Smarana Mangala Stotra, with a preface in English containing the life and precepts of Sri Chaitanya, soon came out of Bhaktivinoda's pen after the discovery of Lord Chaitanya's birthplace, and found its place in all the learned institutions of both hemispheres. The more the names of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna were preached, the merrier was Thakur Bhaktivinoda. He therefore made annotations of the Sri Brahma Samhita and Sri Krishna Karnamrita, and gave to the world his immortal and precious works, Sri Harinam Chintamani and Bhajana Rahasya. He also edited with commentary Srimad Bhagavataraka Marichi Mala, which contains all the most prominent shlokas of the Srimad Bhagavatam pertaining to the Vaishnava philosophy. Bhaktivinoda's pen never tired, and it produced many other Vaishnava philosophical works. Bhaktivinoda would begin his writings very late at night, just after completing his government work, and he would stay up until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, composing songs and literatures. Most of his works appeared in the Sajjana Toshani magazine. He was equally engaged in writing and in preaching the holy name of God in many districts of Bengal. His personal appearances at village had many marvelous effects on the people. To maintain the center at Nadia, he built a house at Sri Godrumadweep, which is called Sri Svananda Sukhada Kunj. Here in this abode, the preaching of Harinam continued in full swing. And it was in the beginning of the 20th century that Bhaktivinoda chose to live at Puri and build a house on the beachfront there. Many honest souls sought his blessings and readily obtained them when he accepted the renounced order of life by taking Babaji initiation from Srila Gorakishore Das Babaji in 1908. Although he was leading the life of a renounced soul, he could not avoid the men of all description who constantly visited him. All of them received oceans of spiritual training, instructions, and blessings. In 1910, Bhaktivinoda shut himself up and remained in a perfect state of samadhi, or full concentration on the eternal pastimes of the Lord. And in 1914, he passed on to the blissful realm of Goloka Vrindavan on the day which is observed as the disappearance of Srila Gadadhar. Herein, we quote a stanza written about the samadhi of Haridas Thakur, which Srila Bhaktivinoda wrote sometime in 1871 to explain what influence a Vaishnava carries in this world after his departure. Quote, "He reasons who tells that Vaishnavas die when thou art living still in sound. The Vaishnavas die to live, and while living, try to spread the holy name around." Srila Bhaktivinoda predicted, soon there will appear a personality who will preach the holy name of Lord Hari all over the world. It is clearly understood that His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, is that personality. We offer our prostrated obeisances, first unto all the devotees who have surrendered unto Prabhupada's divine lotus feet, and next unto the devotees who in the future will take shelter of Prabhupada's lotus feet. And then I, Achyutananda Swami, offer my humble obeisances unto Prabhupada's lotus feet again and again. May Srila Prabhupada bless this first translation attempt so that it may be accepted by Lord Sri Krishna, and may He engage me in the service of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, Lord Chaitanya and Radharani. Signed, Achyutananda Swami, August 20th, 1972, disappearance day of Srila Rupa Goswami at the Radha Damodar Temple in Seva Kunj, Vrindavan. And now, I would like to sing one of my favorite bhajans that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has composed. And I'm dedicating this so that my good friend Gopal Krishna Goswami may recover quickly from COVID-19. Jeev jago, jeev jago, Gora Chanda bole, Kota Nidra, Jao Maya, Pishachira Kole. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vajiva Bolia Ese Krongshada tare buliya rohile tumi abidyara pare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tomare loite ami, hoinu avatar, ami binna bandhuar, ke ache tomar. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Enechi ashadhi maya nashibaro lagi. Hari Nama Mahamantra lao tumi magi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhaktivinoda Prabhu Charane Pariya Shri Hari Nama Mantra Loilo Magia. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Enechio Shanti Maya Nashivaro Lagi. Hari Nama Mahamantra Loitumi Magi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhaktivinoda Prabhu Charane Pariya Shri Hari Nam Mantra Loilo Magia. Hari Nama Mahamantra lao tumi magi. Shri Hari Nama Mantra Loilo Magia. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Gauranga is calling. Wake up, sleeping souls. Wake up, sleeping souls. How long will you sleep in the lap of the witch known as Maya? You have forgotten the way of devotional service, and now you are lost in this world of birth and death. But I have descended just to save you. Other than myself, you have no friend in this world. Yes, I have brought the specific herbal remedy that will wipe out the disease of Maya, illusion, from which you are suffering. Now, take this Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhaktivinoda Thakura says, yes, I fell at the feet of Lord Chaitanya, and after begging from him, he has given me this Maha Mantra. So now, I'd like to sing another one of my favorite bhajans by Bhaktivinoda. And it was also a favorite of Srila Prabhupada, as he used to sing it every time before giving class on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari. And when I sing this song, I merge it with yet another song by Bhaktivinoda, and it seems to fit perfectly. Yashomati Nandana Brajavadanagara, Yashomati Nandana Brajavadanagara, Gokula Ranjana Kana, Gokula Ranjana Kana, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopi Paranadhana Madana Manohara, Gopi Paranadhana Madana Manohara, Kaliya Damana Vidhana, Kaliya Damana Vidhana, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Amala Harina Omiya Vilasa, Amala Harina Omiya Vilasa, Amala Harina Omiya Vilasa. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vipina Purandara Navina Gana Bora, Vipina Purandara Navina Gana Bora, Bangshi Badana Supana, Vasa Banshi Badana Suvasa Braja Jana Palana Sura Kula Nashana Braja Jana Palana Sura Kula Nashana Nanda Godhana Rakowala Nanda Godhana Rakowala Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sundara Nanda Gohala Sundara Nanda Gohala Yamuna Tachachara Gopi Basanahara Yamuna Tachachara Gopi Basanahara Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara Bhakti Vinod Asraya Bhakti Vinod Asraya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajacharya Astotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakura Ki Jai Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Syama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Jamuna Devi Ki Jai Gonga Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura Ki Jai Srila Satchidananda Thakur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Srila Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Special thanks to Balaram Das and my good friend Tapas Kundu for allowing me to do this glorification of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. And I end by offering my obeisances, begging forgiveness for my offensive personality. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhya evacha patitanang pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I now end this lecture.